Hey dude, I think that there's a really high chance that Oda has finally revealed to us the true meaning behind the name Romance Dawn. And let me just say, I am incredibly excited to share my findings with you here today, and I must admit that despite talking about it for quite a while, I've personally been actually against this idea for pretty much as long as I can think about it. But that has now changed, because after Summers came out in full swing with his Devil Fruit reveal in chapter 1143, I don't think that I can deny it much longer, and it's time to talk about, yes, the power of love in One Piece as a real power. And yeah, I can already hear you. Love? Manu, dude, really? Wants to watch that. And I promise you, this is way more interesting than just, oh yeah, baby, love conquers everything, or whatever the usual anime cliche is. No, I wouldn't have made that video that case. So I actually do believe that love is a terrifying, usable power in the world of One Piece. And when a really strong Haki or Devil Fruit user has true love for something, their power increases to the moon and like back again, I guess. Like, love is powerful is what I'm trying to say, but why do I actually believe this? And why do I think that Oda has been hinting at this power for such a long time without ever revealing it? Well, take a seat and let me love bomb you like a tsundere. Okay, that sounded a little bit weirder than I thought it would, but yeah, sorry for that. Anyways, recently, Oda has been drawing more and more attention to the concept of love, at least since the Wano arc. And yes, we're gonna get to the spicy stuff in just a moment, but let me get you there, alright? You'll see. Alright, so Zoro, for instance, he has a new love interest suddenly in the form of Hiyori, and then Sanji unlocks even stronger flames of love in the form of Ifrit Jamba, and just literally tells Kizaru that love is what really makes his fire better than even Kizaru's light powers. Then in Egghead Island, we see the tragic love between Kuma and Ginny, but we also get an even stronger and evil-looking form of Sanji that raves about the power of love when he battles with Asbear. And now, in Elbaf, like, things have just flown off the chart, man. Like, we've got my boy Scopper Gaban here, the Minister of Love, who somehow backed an absolute giant baddie with Ripley over here, and then we have Saint Summers, whose Devil Fruit specifically targets people with strong love for something. I've also theorized before that since Loki's introduction in the series was through a failed attempt at marriage, this arc, Elbaf, I think will also contain a really big backstory concerning Loki's tragic journey of love as well. But honestly, regardless whether that last thing will actually happen or not, it is becoming increasingly evident, I think, to me and hopefully to you as well, that Oda really wants you and me to focus in on love as a actual power source in his story. Because super powerful figures are all focused on love right now, and maybe it's just me, but it kind of seems like the point here is for us to actually realize that love has been a usable power in combat in One Piece all along, as weird as that might sound. And honestly, looking back, it actually shouldn't come as a real shock. I mean, Boa Hancock is the most beautiful woman in the world, and her love belongs to Luffy. And this fact alone should probably already have been a pretty clear hint at how important love would be and how powerful it could be, especially considering that her power is directly related to it as well. But of course, there is also Sanji, who has been doing absolutely crazy stuff himself, basically throughout the entire series, by harnessing his love as well, and there are actually a bunch of other top tiers in the story who have all attacks based on something connected to love, or ended up getting married and having that be a core part of their character as well. I mean, really think about it here. Garp whips out the Fist of Love when we first meet him, Whitebeard's love for his family gave him unbelievable power at the Summit War, and even Monkey D. Dragon tells Kuma during the flashback that his love for his family is what really drives him and threatens Kuma for even talking about Luffy. And this is all nothing because then we have the former Roger pirates, who are just a completely different beast altogether. I actually kind of want to focus on them here particularly because it kind of lines up pretty well with the thing that I said about Romance Dawn earlier as well. Like, how do I put this? Have you ever noticed that after they found the One Piece on Love tale, all the Roger Roger pirates apparently said, screw it, and just sailed the sea to find top-tier waifus, partners, and baby mamas, and I guess Laboon if you count him. I mean, I've kind of noticed, and there are a bunch of memes about this at this point, and I don't think it is just a silly joke that Oda's making here. I actually genuinely believe that maybe something on Laugh Tale showed these people that love is actually the most important thing in the world in a very real sense that's gonna be important for the story. Like, that's why Roger found Rouge, why Rayleigh found Shaki, and why Scopper linked up with Ripley. It even seems like Shanks also went out and had a kid with Makino here, so there's a huge through line of post-Journey Roger pirates on a mission to find love, it seems. And to me, there's just something really interesting about them finding the One Piece and then just settling down. I mean, you could totally just make the claim that they were now finished with their journey and were letting themselves just enjoy life a little bit. And I mean, it's a fair thought, I think, but I just think it's so oddly specific, and Scopper Gaban has been now leaving me in Elbaf with a very sneaky suspicion that love as a power is so much bigger than we all ever thought. But as if that wasn't enough yet, just a couple of chapters later, Summers has definitely now drawn major attention to love once again by showing the opposite side of it as well. Love is dangerous and can easily be used against people. It's a weakness, it's painful, and it can cut really deep, like his rose's thorns. Oh yeah, also real quick before I forget it, I also wanted to say, Summers, man, like, who hurt this dude? Like, you're so broken, buddy. I'm sorry. Please go get some help, man. All right, like, quick personal pat on the back. Totally nailed it when I called out that he would be a love-based foil to Scopper, by the way, a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, it's true. Love is a really dangerous power, and Oda has drawn attention to that before, not just in Elbaf. Remember, Whitebeard's biggest Achilles heel was love in the end. I guess the dude should have just, stuck to loving Stussy. Well, that would have been probably way easier for him, but it's also showcased as Kuma's undoing as well, or Shanks' key weakness when his fleet is threatened, as we see him drop everything to save his crew from Kid in the middle of Egghead Island. And again, of course, the most on-the-nose version of all of this is, once again, Boa Hancock, because her and the Amazon Lily Queens all seem to struggle kind of like a curse almost with love sickness, a debilitating, illness that centers around all of them being down bad, I guess. And so all of this now leaves us with a really interesting situation in the series, and especially now on Elbaf. And that is, which view on love is correct, and which one historically has been the more powerful for people who used it? Love pushing you to new heights of strength for those you care for, or love being a total tool of destruction and other people's downfall? And of course, the question you've been waiting for, how in the world could that literally manifest as a new or hidden power in the story? YouTuber talking again, I know, I get it. But I think we actually already know how this works, and it's just straight up unrelenting strength. Like, it seems like it could be just an unbelievably large surge of haki, for instance, something that ties one's willpower directly to their love of whoever or whatever they're fighting for or defending, I guess. And it could also be a totally different form of haki usage as well. I mean, similar to Ryo, who targets the inside of the enemy. So maybe love haki attacks target the spirit and emotional strength of a target and then just totally crush them that way. But there is also a chance, I think, that love is just like a crazy new aura or transformation that turns the user straight up into a love demon or something, pretty epic like that. We can speculate a little bit. And yes, I know at first that might again sound like, me just wanting to have cool demon designs, which, I really do one way or the other. And so that's a fair point to make. But I also do think that this could have a real chance of being the truth when I show you why love is connected directly to the D-Clan, the Devils of the Void Century, and then maybe you won't think that I'm too crazy. Just a little bit crazy. You'll see, and then you can judge for yourself. Though before we get to that whole segment of the video, which I hope is gonna be pretty fun, I first want to finish up talking about the modern era in One Piece and how the crew is actually gonna tap into that love power on the battlefield. Like, who's gonna get the Straw Hats up to speed on all that stuff to begin with? And who knows? Could be me. After all, over on my Patreon, I have a bunch of exclusive content, made with love for you guys that helps you teach about all the secrets of the One Piece world, early access to podcast discussions from Drink Sake, even more epic art assets or bonus content just, available there. And of course, I'm a professional love doctor, so maybe I can teach Luffy how to secure the bag? But probably not. But yeah, if that sounds interesting to you, you can help the channel and get a lot of awesome stuff by joining our Patreon crew. Me and the team really appreciate it, and big shout out to everyone who already is part of the crew over there. So the real question for our video here now, though, with the bills being paid now, is how will someone actually teach the Straw Hats how to love and then use that in a fight? And I do think that there is one pretty obvious answer in my book, at least, because Scopper Gaban has made it pretty clear already. He knows something about the power of love, and the crew needs to learn it. And after he messed around with Luffy and Zoro for just a moment there, testing them with Loki's key, he told them to find him after the arc. Now, oddly enough, looking at it, I kind of feel like this is the first time Oda has just totally dropped a foreshadowing element without any doubt whatsoever. This is a pretty clear, hey, I'll train you guys message if I've ever seen one in One Piece ever. Especially when it was revealed that Shanks had recently told Scopper Gaban about Luffy, who would probably be on his way to Elbaf very soon, which is why we saw him waiting for the crew at the edge of Elbaf. Now, interestingly enough, this lines up incredibly well with my big Roger theory, the idea that Roger stationed his very elite crew members across the Grand Line strategically to eventually train Ace as the next Joy Boy and guide him to Laugh Tale, but it just turned out to be Luffy instead. And if that were actually to be true, Scopper is just incredibly likely to teach Luffy something that will give him, a really big power boost and let him actually face down characters like the Gorosei, the Holy Knights, and, even Emu at some point. So what could this big mystery power be? Yeah. You're not dumb. You clicked on the video. We've been talking about it. The dude is literally called the Minister of Love. It's been right in front of our faces the entire time, and he's absolutely looking like he's about to give the Straw Hats a lesson on the birds and the bees and how to treat a woman or a man correctly. And interestingly enough, I actually don't think all of the crew or even Luffy himself are gonna be the ones who truly understand this power. Or at least I think that they'll all manifest their own power of love in, completely different and unique ways. But I do think the one who is most likely to lock in and use love as a real weapon, the person who will undoubtedly do it the best is, of course, none other than Sanji. Let's be real, Luffy even called it out specifically himself when Gaban is introduced, stating that he seems just like a future version of Sanji. And I think it's very likely that Sanji will receive the greatest power-up from training with Scopper Gaban, only because he kind of gets the vibe there. Even before we ever met him, Sanji already started to show signs of a more twisted and sinister power when he lets love take the reins, and I would not be surprised whatsoever if we saw Scopper Gaban do something very similar. Remember, his entire vibe and even his body completely changed in Egghead Island when he was activating his real power here. Different eyebrows, stronger fire, and a totally different art style than he's regularly drawn in, interestingly enough. So this to me seems to kind of point out that love could let a user surpass their own limits and tap into a much darker side of their power that they've just never realized that they had before. Now, I do think that this would actually line up with the real world quite nicely as well, as people do some truly messed up stuff, out of love and obsession and lust, of course. Now, Oda may be pointing out how unrelenting love can be and showing it through a more demonic lens like I talked about earlier, and it does seem like demon power stocks are a little bit lower, at least after the reveal that the Holy Knights have devil fruits here, so maybe dark love is the real demon power at play? I don't know, but it would, interestingly enough, still line up pretty well with the power connected to Emu, as I'll show you in just a moment. And this would also line up pretty well with everything that Summers seems to be on about in the last chapters as well. He is the Holy Knight, a celestial dragon, one of the people from God's land, and his view on love is just incredibly sadistic. Listen to this dude. He literally says even murder can be moving, death by love. He thinks of it as pain and something to be manipulated, so this is the natural opposite, I hope you agree, of a character like Scopper, Gaban, or Sanji. I mean, Sanji takes on twisted and demonic looks when he uses love, but this dude is just pure and holy while he manipulates love himself. I feel like it's a nice little dichotomy there where the true users of love, like Sanji or someone like Scopper, Gaban, or Garp maybe, take on an evil form. Meanwhile, Summers, the truly evil person, kind of looks totally regular when he abuses it with his thorns. And I'll admit I can't prove this one just yet, but if Scopper ends up going completely psycho with his love powers in the near future, you all can come back here and pat me on the back for it, and if not, I mean, yeah, you can shame me for it. But funnily enough, I'm actually surprisingly confident this will be the case, as weird as all of this has sounded probably to you, and that's because of the thing that I've been building up to, or at least trying to here. Storytelling is difficult, but the origin of the power of love and how it actually ties into the D-Clan, Joy Boy, and yes, Romance Dawn, the intro, the hook. Because from the beginning when I first started One Piece with the first chapter being called Romance Dawn, I've always kind of assumed that romance here was referring to a less love-focused thing and more the romance of excitement or mystery or adventure, but maybe, just maybe, as I hope I can show you here, it had a double meaning the entire time. So why do I think all of this stuff actually reveals the true reason that Oda originally named the entire series Romance Dawn, then changed it to One Piece, and again, why the name of the first chapter of One Piece is Romance Dawn when there is no romance and no dawn in that very chapter? Well, maybe I just do, huh? Have you ever thought about that? Okay, I'm just playing here. There are a lot of seeds of romance weaved into Imu's story and the way that they describe Lily to Cobra that seem to hint at a grand romance being one of the central elements of the entire Void Century and as a result of the entire One Piece plot. And I want you to just look at what we do know about Imu and their motives. They're destroying the world and hiding the true history, sure, but also kind of like half the time that we see them, they're either staring at photos of Lily or Vivi or talking about them. They literally have a massive weird like painting of Lily on their wall in the flower room, and I don't know about you, but this kind of gave me pretty big hidden shrine in the closet kind of vibes, you know? But more importantly, it's the way that they talk about Lily to Cobra that really got me wondering if there was some bigger thing or bigger issue basically going on here. I want you to remember here that they were frustrated with Lily for their big mistake of letting the poneglyphs be released, and we then know in some way, shape, or form that Imu was most likely responsible for Lily's disappearance because Cobra confirmed that she never made it back to Alabasta, presumably after the second One Piece World War. You know, not the real one, the one from the Harley text one. As you might be guessing at this point, I'm getting at the fact that I'm just getting a distinct feeling that Imu is super fixated on Lily and Vivi out of a love and obsession for these two people. And maybe Lily's disappearance is actually tied to this obsession of Imu's directly. And all of this, I think, could also tie really nicely into Joy Boy's story as well, because we do know that Lily was the one leader who didn't leave their sword in front of the empty throne alongside other 19 kings as she was planning to go back to Alabasta. And seeing as she spread the poneglyphs around the world, which literally detail the entire story of Joy Boy, it kind of has me wondering here if she and Joy Boy, you know, had a bit of a deeper connection. I've talked about this idea before, but seeing as the mural seems to depict Alabasta fighting alongside Joy Boy in the Great History mural, I do believe that there may be some credence towards a Romeo and Juliet style love affair going on here. You know, a situation where Lily and Joy Boy were from two different groups and completely different lifestyles, you know, piracy and royalty, but then found love despite these odds. And I don't think this is too crazy and ties in really nicely with what we're seeing in the series right now and the fact that Oda otherwise tries to stay away from romance in many cases. Because I do feel that Oda may have already been teasing Joy Boy having a deep love for someone in the series already. And it may just be the case that the true power of love could have been showcased in chapter 1122 when Emmet here unleashes Joy Boy's massive Haki knot. Now what we do know here is that Joy Boy infused a physical knot of rope with a crazy amount of power, or maybe he tied his Haki into a physical object, which, you know, then was was the strongest Haki according to himself in Emma's mini flashback story. And this whole video so far has been me talking about how love may be a literal strongest form of willpower Haki, and what if Joy Boy is confirming that to us in this flashback right here? Like, it lines up with the very iconic phrase tying the knot being a literal sign of love and marriage in our world. And before you say that that's just a Western phrase, in Japan, for instance, where this story comes from and where I live, this is actually the case as well. Particularly, the so-called Mizuhiki knot is a ceremonial gift-giving tradition where a knot is tied that symbolizes the hope that once two lives are intertwined, they will then endure unaffected by any external forces, which means that these knots, these so-called Mizuhiki, help convey passionate wishes for lasting love, strength, and unity. Also, in case you've seen it, one of my favorite movies is Your Name, and musubi, so being tied together by fate, and love is like this entire movie's big theme, and it's really important in Japan as well. And so at first it may feel like a bit of a stretch, but what if this Haki knot that Emeth used here was actually tied to Joy Boy's unyielding, powerful love for someone like Lily? You see, my personal idea here was that Lily wanted to be with Joy Boy, but may have had a marriage or some sort of arrangement with Imu at some point during the Void Century or right before it. It could, for instance, explain why Imu is so obsessed with her, as she is their love, and it might also explain, despite their alliance with Joy Boy, why Alabasta was allowed to remain a part of the 20 Kingdoms. They were kind of wedlocked in, and Lily just bore the punishment instead of her entire nation. And honestly, knowing that he was probably a lot like Luffy, maybe Joy Boy just straight up had that dog in him and was just a heartthrob unlike any other. Which would of course explain that when the Roger pirates read his entire story on Love Tale and what he left there, they were like, oh, love pretty dope, we should do that as well. Let's go find ourselves some wives, I guess. And if all of this is true, and my previous idea of Joy Boy and Imu being non-related spiritual brothers of some kind based on the translations of Bing Sake I did, if that was true, this would make things just incredibly messy actually. Because Joy Boy and Imu are symbolically brothers through a sake exchange, and yet Imu is in love with Joy Boy. So yeah, no matter what this constellation is, we are in on some sappy soap opera story beats here if any of this is happening. I'm personally really down with this being the original Romance Dawn in the series. It's kind of similar to, but separate from the pre-One Piece one-shot where the main characters of Romance Dawn were a Joy Boy and Luffy-like figure and a blue-haired girl. And so this blueprint may have found its way into the story through Joy Boy and Lily instead of, in the end, Luffy and Vivi, with Oda deciding that he wanted to keep romance away in his shonen boy manga, for most of the time, but then still wanted to make it a central point. And in the end, Romance Dawn, the dawn that Luffy might be bringing at the end, might still be connected to love in some way, shape, or form as well. Plus, on top, I've always been down with the idea that eventually Luffy and Vivi get together at the end of the story, and their unity might be part of bringing that new Romance Dawn and bringing about the next era and shaping a better world potentially. But I do have to admit that this goes slightly against my own big theories that Imu is possessing Lily's body, and with that being said, I think that there is actually another potential way that this plot could work that accounts for that option as well. Because what if instead of it being a love triangle where Imu loves Joy Boy, whether it's platonic or romantic, doesn't really matter that much, but I do think that this would be an absurd twist where Imu is responsible and has to do what's right in their eyes, despite their brother or secret love Joy Boy being a free spirit who accidentally sends the world into complete chaos. So, in an act of deceit and true pain, Imu somehow possesses Lily's body in an attempt to get Joy Boy to fold and give up. Maybe that worked, maybe it didn't, but now Imu is just stuck as Lily. And even though I like the idea of Imu being in love with Lily and Vivi a little bit more, I don't hate this idea either. And after all, it's a theory. There are gonna be a lot of holes, and there are a bunch of ways that this could end up not working or working out similarly but differently. These are just my interpretations interpretations and something I noticed in the story recently, and while I'm pretty amped at this idea, there is something more important left to cover as well, because how will Luffy, most importantly, channel this power of love into his rubbery punches to kick the Gorosei's butts? Because to me, it kind of seems pretty likely that Luffy won't just bust out romance fists or, deep love kicks or any of that nonsense. No, instead, he'll probably harness platonic love to its absolute max stats. We're talking about love for his family and his crew, because these people are, of course, his real anchor, his everything, his motivation. I mean, when Ace died, he was just crushed beyond belief, and it was the lowest point in his entire life. So if something like that were to happen to someone like, I don't know, Garp, Nami, Zoro, or really anyone from the crew, Luffy would lock in and his love would completely take over. Remember, he faced up with the Admirals and Sengoku before the time skip, before knowing about Haki or anything, all because he wanted to save his brother that he loved so much. And now, of course, it's a little bit different. He has advanced Haki, has an awakened Devil Fruit. Just imagine the true brutality of what would happen if someone like Vivi or Garp was now put up for execution. A Gear 5 love-filled punch of absolute death raining from the sky would be a pretty epic sight to see. Like, I kind of wanted to see, I'm not gonna lie, this would be absolutely insane. And let me tell you, man, this has kind of got me into my feelings now. If there was only a video that could help me get all my romantic feelings about One Piece out and let me explore my true love One Piece even more. Like, seriously, wouldn't it be cool if there was, like, I don't know, a video that broke down all of the Straw Hat's love interests and also of the confirmed relationships in the series? Wait, there is? I made it. Boom. Go check that one out if you want to. It's actually one of my team's favorite videos because it's so different from what we usually do, and I think you'll see why. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and thanks to the Patreons as always, and I'll see you in the next one.